Stop being convenient, start being strong. An audiobook for women ready to reclaim their power. Introduction. You don't have to be convenient to be loved. Let me tell you something nobody probably ever said to you out loud. You are not required to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. For years, maybe your whole life, you've been taught that being good means being easy. Easy to deal with, easy to please, easy to ignore when it's convenient for others. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You said yes when every cell in your body screamed no. You've apologized for things that weren't your fault, just to keep the peace. And here's the cruelest part, you thought that's what love required. But kindness is not the same as convenience. Being loving doesn't mean being available for everyone's comfort at the expense of your own soul. This book isn't about becoming cold or harsh. It's about understanding that strength and softness can exist, but only when you stop betraying yourself to make others comfortable. This is your permission slip, to stop performing, to stop explaining, to stop carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. Let's begin. Chapter 1. When did being convenient become the standard, and who decided that? Think back. When did you first learn that your feelings were negotiable, but everyone else's were facts? Maybe it was when you were told to be nice after someone hurt you. Maybe it was when your anger was called dramatic, but his was called passion. Maybe it was when you realized that taking up space, your needs, your voice, your preference made people uncomfortable, so you learned to fold yourself smaller and smaller until you nearly disappeared. Here's the truth: the world didn't need you to be convenient. It needed you to be controllable. And the easiest way to control a woman is to convince her that her value is tied to how little trouble she causes. You were taught that being accommodating equals being feminine, that sacrifice equals love, that silence equals grace. But none of that is true. It's just easier for everyone else when you don't ask questions. Don't make waves, don't take up too much room. So let me ask you, who benefits from your smallness? Because I promise you it's not you. Chapter 2. You are not obligated to be liked. You are obligated to be yourself. This might be the hardest pill to swallow. Not everyone is going to like you. And that's not a problem to fix, it's a fact to accept. You've been chasing approval like it's oxygen. You've twisted yourself into shapes that don't fit your bones, just to hear someone say you're so easy to be around. But here's what nobody tells you: the version of you that everyone likes is usually the version that you can't stand. Being yourself means some people will walk away. Some will call you too much or too intense or difficult. Let them, because the people who are meant for you won't need you to audition. They won't require you to dim your light, filter your opinions, or apologize for existing fully. You are not a product to be marketed. You are a person to be known, and being known requires honesty, not performance. It requires boundaries, not flexibility. It requires you to stop asking, will they like this version of me? And start asking, do I like this version of me? The answer to that second question, that's the only one that matters. Chapter 3. If I say no, they won't love me. The most dangerous myth about acceptance. Let's destroy this lie right now. Love that requires your silence is not love. It's control. You've been terrified of the word no because somewhere along the way, you learned that boundaries equal rejection. That saying I can't or I won't would make people leave. So you said yes when you meant no. You showed up when you wanted to rest. You gave and gave and gave until you were empty, all to prove you were worthy of staying. But here's the truth: anyone who stops loving you because you set a boundary never loved you. They loved your compliance. They loved the version of you that didn't challenge them, didn't inconvenience them, didn't remind them that you're a full human with limits and needs and a right to your own life. Real love doesn't punish you for having boundaries. Real love respects them. It doesn't ask you to prove your devotion through self-abandonment. It doesn't require you to break yourself to earn it. So say no, say it clearly, say it without apologizing, without explaining, without performing guilt to soften the blow. And watch, the people who truly matter will still be there. The ones who don't, you just saved yourself years of exhaustion. Chapter 4. Behind the smile that pleases everyone is often a woman who is suffering. You've perfected the art of looking fine. The bright smile, the I'm good when you're falling apart. The ability to hold space for everyone's emotions while swallowing your own. But here's what that costs you: your peace, your authenticity, your self-respect. Every time you fake being okay, you teach people that your feelings don't matter. Every time you prioritize their comfort over your honesty, you reinforce the idea that you're not allowed to take up emotional space. And over time, You start to believe it yourself. You start to think that your pain isn't valid unless it's convenient for others to witness. But your struggles don't need to be palatable to be real. Your exhaustion doesn't need permission to exist. You don't owe anyone a performance of fine when you're drowning. What if you stopped pretending? What if you let the smile drop and said, "Actually, I'm not okay"? What if you trusted that the right people would meet you there, in your honesty, instead of demanding you stay pleasant for their sake? You don't have to collapse to be seen, but you do have to stop lying to them and to yourself. Chapter 5. People only use what you allow. This one stings. But it's essential. You taught people how to treat you, not because you're weak, not because you're stupid, but because you didn't know you were allowed to say stop. You didn't know that setting limits didn't make you selfish, it made you sane. So they took your time, your energy, your emotional labor, and you gave it over and over because you thought that's what good people do. But here's the reality: generosity without boundaries isn't kindness, it self-destructs. People will take as much as you offer, not because they're evil, because that's how humans work. We test limits, we push until we feel resistance, and if there's no resistance, we assume everything is fine. So if someone is walking all over you, ask yourself, where did I remove the fence? Where did I say yes when I meant no? Where did I tolerate disrespect because I was afraid of conflict? You can't control how people behave, but you can control what you accept. And the moment you start enforcing your boundaries, the moment you stop making yourself endlessly available, you'll see who was there for you and who was just there for what you provided. Chapter 6. How to stop explaining yourself and start setting boundaries. Here's a secret that will change your life. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on why you can't, won't, or don't want to do something. You don't need to justify your limits with a list of acceptable reasons. You don't need to perform guilt or remorse to soften the boundary. You just need to say it, clearly, firmly, once: I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. I've decided not to. No apology. No explanation, no negotiation. I know this feels impossible. You've been trained to believe that boundaries without justification are rude. But think about it: when someone tells you no, do you demand they explain themselves? Or do you just accept it? Stop giving people more access to your decision-making process than they've earned. Your no doesn't require their approval. It's not a discussion, it's a statement. And yes, people will push back. They'll guilt you. They'll call you selfish. Let them, because the only people who get upset about boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having any. Chapter 7. Your silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's an act of power. There's a difference between silence born from fear and silence born from choice. One is submission, the other is control. You don't have to respond to every accusation. You don't have to defend yourself against every misunderstanding. You don't have to engage with every person who demands your emotional energy. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them project their narrative onto you, because your peace is worth more than their perception. Strong women know that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every person is entitled to your explanation, your time, or your emotional labor. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not weakness, it's sovereignty. It says, I don't need to prove myself to you. I know who I am. So stop letting people provoke you into exhausting yourself. Stop feeling like you have to respond. Clarify, correct, convince. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Chapter 8. Strong women don't shout. They speak once and that's enough. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You need to mean what you say. Weak boundaries are repeated. Strong boundaries are stated once and then enforced. You don't need to yell, threaten, or beg. You just need to be clear, calm, and unmovable. I said no. I'm not discussing this again. This is my decision. And then hold the line. Because if you repeat yourself, negotiate, or allow someone to wear you down, you've just taught them that your words don't matter. That if they push hard enough, you'll cave. Strong women don't need volume. They need conviction. They speak in calm, steady tones that say, this is not up for debate. And people listen, not because they're afraid, but because they recognize someone who knows their worth. So stop over-explaining. Stop repeating. Stop trying to convince people who are determined to misunderstand you. Say it once, mean it, and let your actions back it up. Chapter 9. I'm not convenient, I'm honest. The shift where everything changes. This is the moment, the turning point, the line in the sand. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop performing agreeableness. You stop pretending to be easy when you're actually exhausted. And you start saying things like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not comfortable with that. I need time to think. I've changed my mind. You start being honest instead of convenient. And yes, it feels scary. Because honesty requires vulnerability. It requires you to risk disapproval, conflict, discomfort. But here's what happens when you choose honesty: you start attracting people who can handle the real you. You stop wasting energy on relationships that only work when you're pretending. You build a life that actually fits your soul instead of one that fits everyone else's expectations. Being honest won't make you universally loved, but it will make you free. And freedom, my friend, is worth more than approval ever was. Chapter 10. If you're afraid to disappoint someone, you're living their life, not yours. Whose life are you living right now? Whose dreams are you chasing? Whose approval are you seeking? If the answer isn't mine, then we have a problem. You can't build a life you love while trying to meet everyone else's expectations. You can't be yourself while constantly shape-shifting to avoid disappointing people. You can't find peace while carrying the weight of everyone's projected hopes for who you should be. Disappointment is inevitable. You will let people down. You will make choices they don't agree with. You will prioritize yourself in ways that inconvenience them. And that's not cruelty, it's growth. The people who love you for real will adjust. They'll be disappointed and still respect you. They'll disagree and still support you. They'll wish you'd chosen differently and still honor your autonomy. The ones who can't, they were never invested in you. They were invested in the version of you that served them. So stop living in fear of their disappointment. Start living in alignment with your truth. Because at the end of your life, the only person you have to answer to is yourself. Chapter 11. Most conflicts are just boundaries. Said with confidence, you've been avoiding conflict your whole life. But what if I told you that most of what you call conflict is actually just clarity? When you say, I'm not doing that, and someone gets upset, that's not conflict. That's them realizing they can't control you anymore. When you stop overfunctioning, stop rescuing, stop tolerating disrespect, and someone calls you selfish, that's not conflict. That's them mourning the loss of your compliance. Healthy boundaries feel like conflict to people who benefited from you having none. But that doesn't make the boundaries wrong. It makes the dynamic unhealthy. Real conflict is aggression, cruelty, intentional harm. Setting a boundary is none of those things. It's simply you saying, this is where I end and you begin. So stop apologizing for having limits. Stop softening your no to avoid discomfort. Stop letting people guilt you into believing that self-respect equals selfishness. You're not starting conflict, you're ending dysfunction, and that's something to be proud of. Chapter 12. What a strong female voice sounds like. Soft, but unmistakable strength doesn't roar. It doesn't need to. A strong woman's voice is calm, clear, certain. She doesn't yell because she doesn't need to convince you. She states her truth and then lets it stand. She says, I've made my decision. This doesn't work for me. I need you to respect this. And there's no aggression, no defensiveness, no apology, just quiet, unshakable certainty. That's what power sounds like. Not loud, not harsh, just unmovable. You don't have to be aggressive to be strong. You don't have to be cold to have boundaries. You don't have to harden yourself to protect yourself. You just have to know your worth. And speak from that place, softly if you want, but never with doubt. Because a strong woman doesn't need to prove she's strong, she just is. And everyone around her feels it. Conclusion. I was not made to be convenient. I was made to be real. So here we are, at the end of this book, but really, at the beginning of something else. Your life as a woman who refuses to shrink. You spent so long being easy, being flexible, being understanding, and maybe, just maybe, you're ready to be something else now. Real, not perfect, not palatable, not universally adored, just honest, boundaried, whole. This is your life. Not a rehearsal, not a performance, yours. And you get to live it in a way that honors you, not in a way that makes everyone else comfortable. So stop waiting for permission. Stop apologizing for taking up space. Stop making yourself smaller so others can feel bigger. You are not decoration. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are the main event. And it's time you started acting like it. 30-day practice. Speak with confidence, even when you're scared. For the next 30 days. Practice this every time you feel the urge to over-explain. Stop. Say what you mean, once, clearly, Then be silent. Every time you want to apologize for a boundary, don't just hold it. Every time you're tempted to say yes out of guilt, pause and say no instead. This won't be comfortable. You'll feel rude, selfish, mean. You're not. You're just not convenient anymore. And that, my love, is the whole point. End of book.